There's an oil leak in Bayelsa State, southern Nigeria. It's not the first and probably won't be the last. It's spread into the wetlands and fields, and there's no escaping the overwhelming smell. Maurice Alagoa is from a local NGO known as Friends of the Earth Environmental Rights Action, and he's surveying the damage with his colleagues.
Our profession.
What you see around this environment is a major spill that occurred on the 4th of June this year, 2010. And as a matter of fact, it is the latest as far as my environmental monitoring knowledge is concerned. It is the latest spill in the state, and it occurred in the night. Like the 2007 spill that occurred here, it flowed right here through the drainage system there into the Taylor Creek. And it's impacted on the fishing folks. They could no longer fish.
The Delta is home to Africa's largest oil and gas industry, and 95% of Nigeria's foreign exchange comes from crude oil. But residents have seen little benefit from the billion-dollar industry, and communities that once lived off farming and fishing can no longer depend on their trade. Innocent Tomwe, a former fisherman, has had to stop casting his nets because the Bonny River is full of oil and there's hardly any fish left. He now does menial jobs to help support his family of 5.
Already we have been frustrated because of no fishing, and at times we close along and make small farm around our coast. We don't have anything like fishing again because of the oil flooding everywhere.
It's an environmental disaster. 9,000 square kilometers of mangroves that grow around the Delta are under threat. The trees provide important breeding grounds for many fish species and help prevent soil erosion. Residents also complain about health problems and skin diseases. Royal Dutch Shell, the largest operator in the country, currently has 1,000 lawsuits against it linked to oil spills. Experts say that unlike in the US, where President Obama has ordered BP to compensate affected families following a recent oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, in Nigeria, oil businesses operate with recklessness and impunity.
We are calling on Shell to do the proper thing. We don't want this type of environmental racism. Look at what is happening in America. The oil companies are on their knees, and Barack Obama is actually on the side of the people. Our leaders here are not like that. The Commission of Environment has not been in this community all this while that we have been having spills repeatedly here.
Shell says it does clean up oil spills, but can't when there are security concerns or when communities deny them access. They also claim that only 14,000 tons of oil were lost to spills in the whole of last year. That's around 100,000 barrels. The BP rig in the States was losing around 50,000 barrels every day, although there too, the oil company's own estimates were initially much lower. Mitiu Sanmonu is the Shell Nigeria country chairman.
If I take a look at Shell, between 2000 and 2007, for instance, over a 7-year period, the total number of spill we have in the Delta averages less than 10,000 barrels. And about 70 to 75% of these is outside of our control completely. And if I look at 2009, we just ended, only 2% of our spill is within our control. The remaining 98% is outside of our control.
Shell and the government blame these men for sabotaging oil installations and causing leaks. They are the Movement for the Emancipation of the Niger Delta, or MEND, a group formed in 2006 who say they are fighting for the rights of people here. By 2009, MEND had cut down at least a fifth of Nigeria's oil output, but they laid down their weapons last year in exchange for job opportunities under an amnesty program by late President Umaru Yar'Adua. Tom Ateke is a former MEND leader and warns that the militants may regroup if the government does not deliver on its promises.
We want business. We can't just remain like this. We want business. Because if we remain like this, nobody knows what will happen tomorrow. You want me to go and steal? The boys are many. So they should give us something to do. We want them to keep us busy.
Meanwhile, some local residents make money from the leaking oil by collecting and refining it for sale on the black market. John Yede is the Assistant Secretary of the Bodo Youth Council in Ogoniland, which monitors the effects of oil pollution here.
Because of negligence on the part of the Shell, the pipeline has not been replaced for some time, and there has been rupture here and there. And this is one of the sites, and because this thing affected our aquatic life, biodiversity and all that has been affected, and there is no fishing going on as it used to be. So most of them has now devised another means by ensuring that they survive through this means.
Apart from MEND, local activists like the late Ken Saro-Wiwa tried to get the world to take action by leading protests against oil pollution in the 1990s. But he and 8 other activists were later hanged by the then ruling military regime. In 2009, Shell paid $15.5 million to the victims' families in an out-of-court settlement. The oil conglomerate was accused of complicity in human rights abuses in Ogoni. The government says it's doing its best to improve things in the Delta and is working on the petroleum industry bill that aims to regulate the industry better.
You can see all these ones.
Pastor Martin Kiri thinks none of this would have happened without the militants' armed struggle. He says chemical waste from oil plants flow right outside the doorsteps of residents here, and he hopes that the country's new president, Goodluck Jonathan, who's from the south, will leave a legacy of development in the region before next year's elections.
I don't call them militants. I see them as strugglers. Aluta, they want to make sure that what is meant for them should be given to them. If not, they who are at the up call them militants. We don't call them militants. We call them as people who are fighting for their rights. We know that with the level they've reached, government have realized their fault. But if government could not really stand up to do their thing, we can see struggle. All of us are ready to go for that struggle.
When the lucrative oil mining industry was started here in the 1950s, many expected development to follow swiftly. But years later, residents still struggle with poverty and pollution. Even though the oil companies bear some of the responsibility, change is unlikely to happen without action from the government, both to regulate the oil industry more and to address the poverty faced by people here directly, so that they don't make the environmental problem caused by oil companies worse by sabotaging the pipes themselves.